Now, I want to show you a useful tool that is very important when it comes to if you're working for an agency, they give you a model to use, or maybe a client might give you a model, is use this tool, append. It's such a powerful tool. Rather than just exporting something, you can actually just you can tell Blender to grab the model from another project. So if I click append, I can go into another project, which is here. So I've made one here. I can open this and I can go into my brush collection. I can go into my my normal collection. I can go into images, materials, mesh, world, but usually I'm going to go into collection and just click this. And what this does is I can actually bring another model from another project file, like so. You can you can pull all sorts of information from here. So yeah, like my materials here, my object that I just brought in, my EC3D model, scenes, everything. Such a powerful tool, and you should maybe consider using that more often. That's another thing to consider. Now, there is a link option here. This is also great for if if you're working for an agency, they might provide you a rig of a character. So let's say there's an animator who wants to continuously update this rig. If you link your project file to that project with the rig, it's going to bring that rig into your project naturally. But let's say this that rigger also makes an update. It's going to be instantly updated to your project, if that makes sense. So you are telling, it's like the append. You're telling Blender to go find a certain asset or model, whatever, from another project file, and it's going to bring it into yours. But if you do a link one, it's going to forever work hand in hand with that project file you've just linked. So whenever there's a change in that linked project file, it's going to have an effect in your project file as well. So this is good for when you have multiple things happening amongst other project files. But if you're just working by yourself, maybe link isn't really a useful tool, but append definitely is. Now, another useful thing to share is when you have your scene, you have all your materials here, they're all ready. If I were to just close this down and send this to my client and say, take a look, he's going to say, it's going to look something like this. He's going to look at it and go, why is everything purple? That's because when he or she opens it, they don't actually have the materials, unlike what you do on your computer, because Blender is actively looking for the materials. So in this one here, I have the materials, but in this one, I don't. So the way to go around this is if you have your scene full of materials, you go into File, External Data, and you select Pack Resources. So what that's going to do is going to get all the information in Blender, and it's going to cram it all into the existing project file. This will go from your project file being like 30 megabyte to potentially even 1 gigabyte. It will increase it massively. However, it's incredibly useful for when you want to send over a project file and not having to unpack. You can unpack as well. So to save VRAM, because Blender might crash if it's opening such a large file, you can pack it and then unpack it. So then Blender will create a textures folder in the same relation to the project file, and it will call it textures, and it'll dump all its textures into that folder, and then you can just pack them both into a zip rather than having to find all the materials all across your computer. It's just going to just put them into one folder. But if the project file is going to be like 500 megabyte, then just leave it as pack resource, and then you're good to go. But like I said, if it's like 2 GB and it's crazy, Blender can't handle the amount of information it's holding into one project file, you can also unpack, and it will just unpack it. It will just unpack it in its original location. Let me just show you this again. If I go to pack resources, it's going to break because it can't find these materials. So it just gave me a bit of a warning because I didn't actually assign these materials yet. Don't worry, it won't give you any warning. And then let's say I want to external data and unpack. It's going to give me multiple options. You can use files in current directory, which is the main option you want to be looking at, which I just mentioned. Is going to put the materials in one single folder next to your original project files. It's so easy to organize. And you can do other options. You can tell Blender to put them back into the original place, or you can just remove them. Really, it's just down to you. Now, to understand a professional workflow is you need to obviously know everything that is here. I did go through this, but you really need to, you can't just have a professional workflow without knowing the tools that Blender has to offer. So you can actually go up into the outliner here and you can see your scenes. So this actually, if you remember what I did a minute ago, I have my previous scenes here. You can visualize them all here. You can go into them and you can model them without actually having to switch between them both. You can go view layer, which is your current one. You have video sequences. This will happen when you have a sequencer going on. Blender file, this will be more internal. So if you want to find some file that you can't quite find, you can locate it here. Everything regarding the project file is all here. Data API, you can look into the data blocks here. Linked overrides, this will be related to the link here, so you can take a look at all this. And an orphan data, this is just little bits of things that it's hard to explain, but this can also be effective when your Blender project is a bit too heavy. You can delete some stuff here. This will just tell stuff that Blender's not currently using, so you can just go ahead and delete some of these stuff. So you can just be always on top of optimization, and optimization is the key thing to have a professional workflow, because if you were to also work in an agency and you to show them this project file, they're going to be saying, this is atrocious, this is so unorganized, we don't want to work with you anymore because we don't believe that you can improve on optimization. You want to be able to give your clients or your agents, your workers, whatever, your work, and they'd be like, wow, this is organized. Don't be lazy, because this only doesn't affect them, this affects you, because your brain can get foggy with all the information going on. Keep them in the related collections. Make sure that your scene isn't lagging. Link them. So if I were to copy and paste this, it's going to obviously create, like I said, it's going to create duplicates of my material. You can link them together by going to object, link transfer data, link object data, and this will link them. As you see, the materials have gone back to the original. So if I do this again, so if I were to edit this one, so if you have a very heavy scene and you feel like you can link, let's say, these trees, you can just select all the trees or all the buildings that you wish to link, select them, object, link transfer data, link, like this, and it will link it. It really depends on how you select it. If you want them to link, if you want this one to link to this one, you make sure that this one is glowing more orange around the outside. And then there you go. So that's about it. That's all I can think about, which is the most useful thing. There are other things like maintaining the right frame rate, keeping consistent with your settings. Make sure, like, if you're working in cycles, you got to keep a consistent samples. Make sure they're high. Don't try and cut corners. Never cut corners. So there is a noise threshold setting here, which like I will explain in another video, which will skip certain samples. This is okay, but don't try and crank this up all the way and set to like 52 samples, because your scene is going to be looking unprofessional. You want to be as crisp as possible. If you want to be very professional, you can select all these, and this will can control all the different passes. Again, in another video, make sure everything is actually correct down here. But yeah, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.